Hello everybody and welcome to the third episode of the Does Metal Have Soul podcast with me, one of your hosts, Levi Clay, and I am here, as always, with the beautiful, the hatted Melisa Kelly.
Yeah, how cool is my... Bonsoir! Look at my hat. How cool is my hat? It's Gizmo. Oh no, I can't.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're always complaining about how cold it is in my studio.
It is a literal freezer in here constantly. I understand that the weather is always crap and that doesn't help. But I think it's just because it's a windowless dungeon.
We live in Scotland and you're surprised that somewhere is cold.
I don't need this kind of negative energy in my life.
How are you? How's your week been?
Good. I gigged quite a few times this week in different places from normal. I did a gig on Friday night for Valentine's Day, or Halloween as I like it now. I like Valentine's and Halloween, spooky people being in love. And it was good fun. I wore my new Rocky Horror boots. I was very excited about.
Platform shoes that made you about 5 inches taller?
Yeah. I was about heights with Levi. It was very exciting. But yeah. Just the usual. How have you been? What have you been doing?
I have been practicing relentlessly. We're going to do some talk about practice during our Metalhead Musings section. But yeah, I mentioned obviously having my piano mentorship with Noah Kelman. A part of that is I have lessons with Noah, but then there's also another one of his tutors that I see weekly as well. So we have been looking at ragtime piano, which is a style of music I love, and it's really cool to be able to sit down and actually play some of that stuff. You know, I'm trying to, it's not change my views on practice, but the whole practice what you preach thing. That's really, I guess, the important thing, right? There's practice, and then there's practicing what you preach. And I run guided practice routines over on my Patreon page, and we are building guidedpracticeroutines.com, where you will get all of the best guided practice sessions for guitar and music in general. And a huge part of that is practicing what you preach. You have to sit in and put in the time. I used to love practicing when I was a kid, and things have not changed, but I'm just as scatty as I've ever been, and I'm constantly wanting to learn new things.
I mean, because I was also going to say, when you say practice what you preach, does that include if you've done a lot of practice and then later on you scale back said practice?
It's a really interesting one, and I'm going to be doing some interviews with a bunch of my famous pals for YouTube soon, talking about practice and how they practice now versus how they practiced when they were younger. I think practice does change as you get older, but I don't think that it has to, and if I'm completely honest, I don't think that it should. I think we have this habit as musicians to learn a thing and practice the thing. You think to yourself, well, I don't need to practice so much anymore. It's natural to think that way because you've learned to do a thing. And of course, that's true if you're practicing shred guitar, but music is vast. And if you put the same amount of effort into practicing other areas of music and improving the areas that you suck, rather than hiding behind your strengths, you will see the same level of progress that you did in that thing that you practiced when you put in the time.
I don't need to be read like this. On the Lord's Day, on a Sunday. Jesus.
Yeah, sorry. So speaking of, should we do some Metalhead musings?
Let's do some Metalhead musings.
Let's start with the ones that I sent you. I'll read them out.
Oh, okay.
So these were feedbacks based on the shorts that I posted on my YouTube channel.
Oh, of the podcast?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, of the practice one.
I see.
We've decided that when it comes to making shorts content from the podcast, Melisa actually does the edit of the podcast. We will be uploading funny things to her channel and serious, inspirational practice.
Nonsense to mine, actual real things to yours.
Yeah, you go to Melissa's channel if you want to laugh. You come to my channel if you want to learn. That's us. Laugh and learn. That's the podcast.
Ew. I hated everything about that.
Yeah, so I got a great comment on my Instagram where, of course, you can follow me. It's Levi Clay. I think it's Levi Clay 88 on Instagram. I'm sure if you look for Levi Clay, there's not too many Levi Clays. So My Guitar Lessons Plymouth said, I really like this. I tell my students, practice makes permanent, as you can practice something perfectly wrong for hours on end.
Word. That is so perfect, because the amount of time, so I taught singing for quite a few years. I don't so much anymore, only because I find the fickleness of a lot of singing students to be deeply frustrating. But the whole a lot of singers, when they do decide to start coming to lessons, it's because they've reached a wall that they cannot get past. And 9 times out of 10, it is because they've been practicing a bad habit for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they've got to unlearn it and then relearn the correct way. Oh, it's so correct.
Yeah, I really like that take because, of course, the old saying is always practice makes perfect. And you don't really think what it means if you practice the wrong thing until you get it perfect. It's like, awesome, I can do this shit thing perfectly.
Yeah, I like that. Practice makes permanence.
Yeah.
Because you are just, a lot of the time, you are just practicing to limit the amount of mistakes you make. You're never gonna be perfect. There's no such thing.
Yeah. The other one that I really enjoyed, this was a comment on YouTube, again, in response to that short. This was from CMT8485. And they said, true constructive practice is the ability to feel comfortable playing something and sounding like shit. Once you remove that part of your ego, you very quickly learn that as long as you're doing everything you need to be doing, i.e. drilling the absolute hell out of fundamentals, as you described, then you truly have nothing to fear. Furthermore, the scope to learn much harder things becomes greater, especially in terms of sight reading or more basic music processing. It really does end up like reading a book. Practice up, my kids.
I feel sometimes, and I know it not to be true, I feel sometimes that your commenters are more eloquent than mine. Mine are just like, rah, rah, get fucked.
Again, come to my channel for learning, your channel for laughs.
Sure, sees.
Education, entertainment. We have different channels and different audiences.
That's incredibly true. Yeah, I think that's some great comments. It's obvious that the people that gravitate towards your channel are going to be people who really, really care about practice.
Oh, you say that, I get
education.
some absolute fucking morons on my channel this week.
Oh, really?
But I don't intend to share those comments. I have been toying, we've been watching that woodworker.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he talked about sharing negative comments on his Instagram stories.
Okay.
I was thinking I might start doing that, like
Right.
screenshotting like really comical negative comments and my snappy responses to them and just posting them as Instagram stories. But it just, when you steer too much into that, people, they convince themselves that you become consumed by the negativity. And it's like, again, that's not actually what I want to be known for. I want to be known for being, a much better educator and to have achieved more in my music career than any of these people that post dumb shit on my YouTube channel.
Well, again, there is the difference between both our channels, because the whole point of me starting Metalhead Musings, it was essentially because I had people like Scott and a whole bunch of people who were just posting these beautiful comments of anecdotes of them being at the gigs in 1975 or something like that. Scott, I know it wasn't you in 1975. I know you're not that old. You give me so much trouble. But it's the backlash of getting some of these dum-dums in the comments was I wanted to go back and go, excuse me, sir, because it's always a sir, and just be like, get fucked.
Yeah.
But therein lies the difference between both our channels. I'm doing it. I think it's funny.
Same, and I do the same. I do come back. The worst part about it is
it doesn't consume me though. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes you snap back at people. Like me, I'll snap back at people so hard and so thoroughly. I'll eviscerate their opinion so thoroughly that they just delete their comment. And it's like, well, where's the fun in that? Like, I'm only engaging with you not to change your mind, but to entertain the people that come and visit my channel. So I have been screenshotting some comments. I'm giving a guy 24 hours who's been doing my head in on my channel, telling me that my Glenn Campbell video he's actually playing at 170 BPM, not 340, because he doesn't understand what beat is. And I spent a little bit of time going through explaining the theory of music theory and how we write music and why 340 is the correct tempo for this. And last night I gave up and I was like, dude, I'm not putting any more time into this. Like, there's no respectfully this, respectfully that. There's no this is your opinion, this is my opinion. This isn't what do you like? This is what is correct, yes or no, right? So, and I've said to the guy, I tell you what, why don't we put a wager on it? Why don't we put a wager on it, right?
I love when stuff like this happens.
I will make a video explaining to you in great detail for YouTube why I'm correct here. And if I can do that, you PayPal me $100. If I can't do that, or I post a video where the information is incorrect, I will PayPal you $500.
Damn!
Funnily enough, he fucking disappeared. So...
Also, honestly though, it's like, and there's kind of a Metalhead musing I've got that kind of attaches to this.
Right.
I don't understand the level of arrogance. Like, there'll be times on the channel where I'll say things in the comments and being filming where I'll say something and assert it, but I'll end the sentence with, but that's just how I feel about the situation, or that's what I think. Let me know if I'm incorrect. 9 times out of 10 I'm sitting there going, I know I'm fucking correct on that. But I don't like to assert because that feels arrogant.
Yeah.
There'd be people out here going to your channel to question you. Like, I live with you. We disagree from time to time.
We disagree about a lot of things.
Because I'm incredibly opinionated and stubborn. And I mean, you're you. I can't imagine anyone coming at you for anything to do with music theory.
By all means, get into deep discussions
Why
with
would
me
you
about
do that?
like what you like, what you don't like. I'm never going to tell you what you do or what you don't like because that is subjective. But don't come at me and say that's not a C major chord when it is in fact a C major chord, because like we can demonstrate why you're incorrect. Anyway, said I wasn't going to go there. We went there. Give us some Metalhead musings, Mel.
Also, sometimes when people put stuff like that on your channel, because like me, I'm just, I am a clown for hire. But like when people do it to you, I'm like, see that asteroid that's supposed to hit us in 2032? Can it hurry up? Can it go a bit faster?
Yeah, these guys better hope it comes faster because I'm about to layeth down.
Layeth? No, you're going to get medieval on your ass.
I'm going to go Dark Souls on them. I'm wearing a Praise the Sun shirt today.
Yes. Metalhead musings. So technically I've got 3 Metalhead musings.
Do 'em.
One of them is total nonsense, but it made me laugh. The first one I really like because it's all about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes in the comment section say to me, you never admit when you're wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I do admit when I'm wrong every single time I see it. If I don't agree, if it's an opinion, I'm not just going to go, I'm wrong. But if it's factual or perhaps I've jumped the shark, which is a phrase I didn't actually realise was a thing.
It's a Happy Days reference.
Yeah, I'll go back and I'll go, listen, you know what? You're right. I concede, blah, blah, blah. This person did it and I was just so proud of them that I wanted to highlight it.
Oh, is this somebody admitting they were wrong about a thing?
Yeah.
That's the wild thing about this guy that I'm offering money to and trying to get money out of. Like, that was the one I showed you where he started out being like, it's 85 BPM. And I'm like, even if your math checked out, which I promise you it doesn't. And then he commented again, blah, blah, blah. So I said more. And then he commented again and was like, my math absolutely checks out. And then literally 60 seconds later, he said, I just checked my maths and it might actually be incorrect. I'm wrong about that one thing. Oh, my camera's decided that it wants to veer off to the side. There we
And
go.
someone's at the front door. God damn it.
And we're back in the room. Sorry about that. My camera went haywire and then someone appeared at the door and they wanted to have a conversation. So
It was a ghost. Okay.
it was the YouTube commenter.
It was a YouTube comment being like, and another thing. So this person, Towering Tosca said, and again, it's accountability. I started, and they're talking about a Strapping Young Lad video.
Okay,
that
great
I put
band.
up, which in the video I say how much I really enjoyed it and that it's incredibly lo-fi, like the recording and everything. And I do make some criticisms, but mostly I'm very, very positive.
I mean, I know you love Devon, but Strapping Young Lad are not going to ever be your favourite Devon because it's, super heavy Devon. Yeah.
And I like theatrical Devon.
Yeah.
I started watching this video of yours when I was less mature than I am now. I've watched the rest of it now that I am more mature. I think you're cool. And I like you liking Devon. So he must have...
Was that it?
Yeah. So he must have started the video, rage quit, because I must have said something, done something that triggered him. And then...
That's kind of wholesome.
Yeah.
Did you respond to that?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Because it only popped up literally as I was looking for something.
Oh, I
and I
see.
was like, It was just a beautiful moment of how much growth is required to literally stop a video that's enraging you and then return to it later to attempt it again.
Yeah. No, that is... what I would be interested to know is the time gap between those two things.
Yeah.
Because he said, now I'm a more mature person. Maybe 2 years have passed.
I'll need to go back so I keep a lot of the really funny aggressive ones from the hailed comments. Maybe he was a hailed comment like ages ago that was just like, you fat whore.
Sounds
I
like
don't
me.
know.
What else you got for us?
So this one. Now, this is neither positive nor negative. I just thought it was an interesting thing that, because we've been talking about practice a lot, and I was like, I'm not giving Debbie any shit. Debbie Shannon says, of Falling in Reverse, Ronnie plays piano, guitar, drums, and bass. Most of his songs are recorded with him playing all of the instruments, and then the band learns to play it live. Now, Debbie, you are a queen. Your profile picture, which I will put on screen, is hilarious. I love it. She's just got her whole face. I don't believe that. I don't believe that's real. Yeah. And I think it perpetuates this weird idea around multi-instrumentalism, and it also perpetuates this weird fly-by-night, like, you're saying that he's played all these instruments, but can you show me actual examples of him playing every single one of those instruments to a decent level? Not high, decent.
Yeah, and the problem with things like that is people like that don't even know what a decent level is. They
No.
All it requires is for somebody to say, I can do a thing, if that, and it's even easier to convince them of a thing if you can already do one thing well, right? So you can say Ronnie's a great singer. Fair to say?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So he's a great singer. So if you think he's a great singer, you listen to him, you really enjoy him, and then he says to you, well, I can play the piano and I can play the bass and I can play the drums, you just take it at face value. Like, I am a professional guitar player and piano player. I make a good living in what I do. Did you know I also play the bagpipes?
I hope that's true, and I know it's not. For sure.
People would just assume it to be...
They would just assume. They would assume. And I also think that when it comes to being a multi-instrumentalist, like, that is hailed up as like this high-end level of genius. And I don't think a lot of people actually appreciate the amount of grassroots musicians that you won't pay a fiver to go and see, who are multi-instrumentalists, who are actually incredible standards of musician.
Yeah.
But you'll go and pay, wait for it, you'll go and pay upwards of £60 to sit in the hydro and listen to, it's like they do covers of vintage style covers, postmodern jukebox, right? Yeah. I'm not saying they're not good musicians and great singers, of course they are, but it's also just like, I don't know, sometimes I want to break down these weird ideas around practice and multi-instrumentalists and what it is to be really great. Because on one hand, you've got all of these amazing grass musicians who get no credit for stuff that you will sing the praises of someone who will charge you £200 a ticket.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
That post actually reminds me, I wanted to rant a little bit. I ranted to you in the house about Ronnie and Falling in Reverse, because Mel did a reaction to Last Resort, his reimagining of Last Resort. And I'm sorry, but I need a second. I was going to look at that camera. We want to look at this camera. I need a second.
You should have went, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you another thing. Sorry.
I'm sorry, but I cannot think. We've been talking about covers in metal, right? I cannot think of something as offensively lazy as that cover of Last Resort. And my justification for that comes from the fact that a song is a collection of things. A song is a lyric. It's a melody. It's how that melody interacts with the harmony, and it's an arrangement. It's all of those things put together. Now, you can tweak little bits of them and still think, oh, that's a cover song. But in this particular, I won't say cover, I'll say a reimagining, but from a legal standpoint, you have a cover license in order to do a song like that. He has a different chord progression, totally different vibe, arrangement, totally different melody.
Yeah.
It's like you write a song, generic 4-chord pop, you put your own vocal melody over it, and then you go, I'm really struggling with coming up with some lyrics to this. I tell you what, I'll just take the lyrics from another song and I'll just slam them over my melody, and then suddenly it's a cover of that song. That's not how that fucking works. That's just not how that works.
Yeah, I like, when you initially spoke to me about it, the one thing that I did say was, I hear what you're saying, and I probably don't find the cover as offensive, because Last Resort was not a song that I knew very well anyway, so it wasn't like I was missing some huge part of the harmony that should have been there, or for the phrasing for that matter. And I do think, as much as I think that this Ronnie character, the more I find out about him, the more I want him, his neck shite, to be a hedgehog. But the fact is, the phrasing in it was very good. Like, he'd chosen really lovely phrasing.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding.
We've just lost half of our viewers.
Is that suddenly a cover now because I've just put Last Resort over fucking Stairway to Heaven?
No, but that's just it. And this is the thing that I complain about a lot. Whenever a metal band, and the only person who gets it is Zakk Wylde, when a metal band just goes, you know what we should do? We should do a cover of like a really well-known pop and a lot of the time soul or R&B style song. Let's do a slowed down version of it. We'll have grand piano, maybe a choir,
but we're still going to keep the melody.
Sure.
And we're still going to keep the way that melody interacts with the harmony, because that's a key constituent of what makes a song.
Yeah.
A song is more than just a lyric. If you take the lyrics out of a song, you don't have a song anymore. You have poetry.
Yeah.
So Ronnie just took someone else's poetry and applied it to a thing, and his brainwashed idiot fans are like, oh, he's a genius.
But here's and this is the problem. The word genius is so bandied around. It's just flung around like many pieces of genius confetti for everyone to have a little piece. And it's like, no, it's not all genius. And here's the tea. Adam from YouTube that did the cover of Adele's Hello. Now, Adele's Hello...
That's a really good example of a cover. That's a reimagining.
Yes. I don't like Adele's music, but I love that for her. Love her here, hope she wins. But the fact of the matter is, that cover is astonishing. The harmony he chose for it and the academic and emotional backing he gave for changing the harmony was so good. So good.
Raises an interesting thing, because I said a harmony is an important part of a song, but of course you can reharmonize chords in a song and it still be the song. You're just changing some of the emotional resonance. You think lyric connects to the listener's inner part, if you like. Same with melody, and how you hear that in relation to the harmony impacts the way you interpret that melody, the way that melody makes you feel. So reharmonizing, obviously common in jazz music, but changing the harmony, changing the melody, changing the arrangement, changing every aspect about a song apart from the lyrics, so you can capitalize on a song that was popular 20-something years ago. And it wasn't fucking high art when it was popular 20-something years ago either. No. So it's like, just write your own lyrics over it. Oh, that's it, isn't it? If you'd put your own lyrics over this, no one would have cared. All right, give me another Metalhead musing. You had one more.
Okay, this one's just for funsies, because again, it falls into the category of, is it me? Do I just not understand what it is to be human? Because I would never do this. Melody Satterwhite, 1999, says, "Stop singing. Nobody wants to hear your voice. Who do you think you are? Shut up."
Stop singing. Nobody wants to hear your voice.
Who do you think you are?
I don't know how to break it. You just headbutt on a microphone. Yeah. I don't know how to break it to a person who has an opinion like that. But the only money that you make in the world comes from people paying you to sing, because your YouTube channel certainly doesn't make any fucking money.
Just reading me for filth here, just, you know.
But people literally pay you to sing.
It was just one of those ones where I read and I burst out laughing, because I was just like, unfortunately, Madame Melody, you've flashed me your entire hand.
Oh, what do you know what video that was on? If you don't immediately know, it's not important.
I don't immediately know.
Fine.
Yeah, it's just that whole thing of like, you've come onto the internet, you don't know any of the people that are on the internet, not in the comments and not the people making the videos, and you've decided that you're going to have it out, but in the weirdest, most one-sided kind of way. I think it falls into the category of idolising some form of art or musician, and then if anyone says anything offensive, you're like, oh, well, that's it. And I just love the idea of some woman somewhere in the world typing and being like, who do you think you are? And shut up.
Well, you know, it comes from this. We've had years and years, decades, and your entire life, you have gone through your life. If you have any experience of the internet, but even before that, a celebrity culture that existed before the internet, if you wanted to say something about a person, you could, back in, you know, the 50s, the 40s, you could send them fan mail and tell them you think that they're a shithead. And in the internet, you can tweet at somebody and tell them that you think that they're a shithead. And because you've spent years and years and years doing that, of that being the way things are done, it's like slapping the biggest man in the room on the back of the head and then hiding. You're only doing it because you can hide afterwards.
Yeah.
But you're suddenly offended or upset when you make a comment to somebody on the internet and the person that made the content gets back to you. The qualified person that is successful doing the thing. Oh.
Gemma, I don't understand. Like, part of me wants to take Melody out for lunch and hold her hand and ask her where the pain began. But I'm just like what?
Take her out for lunch, or like take her out for lunch?
I'll never tell.
Okay, shall we move on to some news?
Yeah.
So the news this week is going to be brought to you by our friend Chris Locke.
Oh,
Just because Chris donated some money to the podcast
that's right.
last week,
Thank you, Chris.
which will allow us to upgrade this camera. And I'm having second thoughts about upgrading this camera now because, see this camera? My phone.
It's an iPhone.
You look good on it. And also, see this camera?
Yeah.
The one that I'm filming on there? This one just randomly has a mind of its own and decides that it's going to start turning and looking for things. So maybe not get another one of those. The plan is to get another one of those. Anyway, news. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris. You are sweet and also funny. You send me random things, they make me laugh. Okay, this one, it causes Marmite in the opinions of it, which I always find fascinating. Ozzy Osbourne is being...
Again.
Again.
Every week.
Unfortunately, it's all that anyone's talking about. Ozzy Osbourne sued by a photographer for posting photos of himself on social media. Ozzy Osbourne finds himself in the weirdest of legal trouble as he is being sued for posting photos of himself on social media.
I don't need you to tell me anymore. I know how this story ends. I know where it goes, not because I've read it, but unfortunately, I don't agree with it. But that is how copyrighted photography works.
Yep.
And I have, on the Guitar Souls, I argued about it all the time. I took issue with it all the time. I think that laws around photography need to change significantly because you can take a photo of a butterfly or take a photo of Ozzy Osbourne. One of those things is more valuable than the other. And the one that's more valuable is not more valuable because of your ability to take a photograph. That photograph is valuable because of the person in the photograph. So by all means, you can own rights to that photograph, but I don't feel that the person that it's a photograph of should have no rights over that photo.
100%. Because when I initially started reading it, I was almost like you, just like, I'm not reading this. This is bullshit. But the more I read it, I was like, there are still people who would have this weird and feel completely justified argument about how, well, no, like, you know, you can't, that photograph is absolutely owning to them, blah, 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 which is right.
That's how the law works.
Yeah, we might not agree with it, but that's the way it is. But also, as you say, Ozzy Osbourne and a butterfly,
Yeah.
it's not the same.
But at the same time, I don't know why Ozzy would have, well, Ozzy's not on his phone posting things he can't walk, so he's probably not tweeting, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, he hasn't posted this, someone has posted this on his behalf. There are enough photos that he knows or that they should know we have the rights to use these photos. I totally think that laws around copyright and photography need reform because it happens too often.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is probably the best example of it. She has very strict contracts that people have to sign before they're allowed to go and take photographs of her at concerts, as it should be. And photographers complain about it. And it's like, hang on a minute here. Why do you want to go to this gig and take photos? Oh, because the photos will be really, really valuable. Have you made those photographs valuable? No, she's made those photographs valuable. But, there doesn't seem to be any reform happening there.
No. And the worst of it is, a lot of these people who are like out here taking photographs of celebrities for which that they can, claim on, sue for later, whatever, they don't often take great photographs. They take, for real though, some of them take great photographs because their subject is great. Because Taylor Swift's wearing a sequin gown. Because Ozzy's making one of crazy Ozzy faces. You know what I mean?
Because Taylor's on stage paying an absolute fucking fortune for an amazing lighting show.
Yeah, you didn't make that. You didn't choose the dynamics of that fucking photograph. Don't get me started.
I think laws like that are good for photographers because it stops, for example, us taking a photo. Well, there's multiple laws that stop this. Us taking a photo of Ozzy Osbourne, putting it on a t-shirt and selling it.
Sure.
Like, Ozzy has rights around his image, name and likeness. Ozzy Osbourne is a trademark, so I can't produce merchandise that says Ozzy Osbourne on it. That's all true. But the same with photography. I can't release a book that has a picture of Ozzy Osbourne or anyone on the cover if that photo was taken by somebody else and I don't have a license to use that photo. There's good reasons that we have copyright protection.
For sure.
But yeah, I think there should be fucking a complete right for the artist in the fucking photo to be able to use the photo on what I assume is a social media post.
Yeah.
Suck a bag of Richards.
A bag of is making a reoccurrence.
Yeah.
Several people have said it to me.
Yeah, same.
Not telling me to suck a bag of... Never mind. Okay, next piece of news.
Yes.
It is Black Sabbath centric, I'm afraid.
Cool. Of course it is.
But it's only a
Is
quick
it people not being able to get tickets for the gig?
It is.
Of course.
Show sells out in 16 minutes. Everyone predictably pissed off. Tickets started at £170.50.
And they would have been dynamically priced, I assume?
And according to one ex-user, went to £2,932.50. The ultimate side stage experience.
That's quite cheap for ultimate side stage experience at that gig.
I would have thought so.
Because
Still ridiculous.
We're going to see Zach Sabbath in a couple of weeks, and you know how much I paid for that.
Yes, I do. You're a big fan, though, so it's different.
Well, it's a business expense as well. We're going to that, and Zach is. You think I will pin that man down if I have to, and give him a wet willy until he. Oh yeah, okay. I will pin that man down if I have to and give him a wet willy to make him give us a wee. Hey guys, this is Zach Wild, and you're listening to the Does Metal Have Soul podcast.
What is going on today? You have been singing? You're now doing accents?
I'm full of energy. I had a cookie before I came out.
Okay, well, that one I just read. I read the cost of things and I was just like, wowza. Yeah. But also, most of those tickets have been probably bought by people who are going to sell them on.
I don't think that's true. No, I don't think that's true.
No.
The nature of dynamic pricing is to, and I obviously don't agree with dynamic pricing, but the nature of it is to try and eliminate scalpers from things. They're bringing in more and more ways to make ticket touting harder to do. I think that it's a case of there's only so much space in the venue, and we're being sold it as though it's an incredibly important part of rock and metal history, which, to be fair, it is. It's the last ever performance of Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And because there's no Dio, that also makes it the last ever performance of, did I say Black Sabbath? Last ever performance of Ozzy. And because there's no Dio, there will never be another Black Sabbath concert either. So, it is a huge important part in metal history. So the demand for that is always going to outstrip the supply. Yeah, always.
For sure. Which is fair.
Yeah.
Okay, this one, it's densely layered.
It better not be about Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath, or I'm going to headbutt this microphone until I bleed.
It's not.
Okay.
It's about Lacuna Coil, which is a band that I'm going to be doing on the channel this week, or recording this week. The reason I'm bringing it up is because one of the things that I can say confidently is that metal music, and this is not as a negative, metal music is incredibly male dominated.
Yes.
Again, not as a negative, it just is.
Yeah.
And there's
it's an observation rather than a,
I'm sure there's many reasons for that. I'm sure some of those reasons are completely normal. I'm also sure some of those reasons are because of weird behaviour from certain male members of the community. Don't try and come for me on that one. I think there's probably proof for that. But I read this and it was such a weird feeling of reading it because, of course, I work in a lot of different genres where there's plenty of women there. And you've got a mixed bag of...
But still not as many.
Still not enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In terms of vocalists, perhaps, but in terms of band members,
absolutely,
it's still male dominated.
It's still male dominated. And I read this and it was half of me wanted to go, you know what, girl, work, you do you. But the other side of me was also like, oh, couldn't you have found a better word salad?
Well, bless her, she is Italian.
Well, this is also part of it. So Lacuna Coil's Christina never saw the malice in being highlighted as one of the hottest chicks in metal. In an interview...
Well, yeah, because she benefited massively from it.
Okay.
I remember, back in the day, that was the reason to check out Lacuna Coil.
Sure.
It really is as simple as that. Because, she took full advantage of that. The metal press, that's how they sold them. And that as a marketing... And their label, that as a marketing tactic will have been effective for them.
And this is the thing. I actually don't... I'm not shading her for that.
Sure.
And this is the thing. In fact, people get confused because... People who know Levi much better and have never met me, I think are confused when they meet me because they're like, maybe expecting me to be quite docile. I think they do sometimes. And then they meet me and they go, oh God, you're quite a lot, aren't you? I'll always be a girl's girl. I will always root for women doing things in male-dominated areas where if that is what they have to do to compete and be included, fucking get doing it. But she goes on to say, I never saw the malice in it. I always thought it was actually a very powerful thing for a woman to be feminine. I love powerful women. I love being powered by who I am. I don't want to hide myself because I am a woman. And if I show my legs, that means I'm worthless? ? That's not my problem. So when I actually went on the cover of Revolver magazine, because I was the very first woman to actually appear on the cover for me, it was the biggest honour for me because it was the first time that a magazine had featured a woman on the front cover, and it was an absolute pleasure. So the thing that I take issue with in the whole thing, and it's not, again, she's really beautiful, whatever you have to do to compete is okay in my book, But it's the fact that she goes on in the interview to talk about the fact that it was a pleasure and an honour and all these things. And whilst there's part of me that goes, you did the thing you needed to do, compete, and now you're included in the club and that's what's important. But why would you talk about these motherfuckers like it was a pleasure and an honour?
Because you have to say thank you. If you don't say thank you to these people, they cut you out and they never give you a platform.
That's nuts.
She is successful not because of her singing ability, and she's not successful because of her looks either. Because if you have the singing ability and the looks and you're just on your own in the street singing, it means fuck all. She is successful because of record labels and because of magazines. Because that's the generation she came up in. And there are bands that absolutely succeeded because of that. Probably the best example would be Arch Enemy, right?
I was literally about to say that.
Arch Enemy, when they had a male singer, weren't all that popular. And then suddenly, when Angela Gossow joined the band, suddenly people started to take notice. Now, she is a better singer than their previous singer, but it was a novelty thing because, you know, when she left, you bet your ass they weren't considering hiring a male singer again.
No, and I think the thing that it's complex. The thing that I loved about Angela from Arch Enemy is that when she decided to leave, because she's still managing the band, I believe,
Yes.
or she was for a while, she got another woman in. Now, I know that was a marketing decision. It was definitely based on, we need to make sure that there's a woman at the front of this that will keep us relevant. But she did still put another woman in a position that they probably wouldn't have got. I don't know. I just feel like if you get to a certain amount of success, help other people up the ladder. Don't kick the ladder out from behind you and then talk about how your misogynistic beginnings were an honour. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
The problem with Lacuna Coil is they're just not very good.
I mean, I haven't heard them, so I might fall in love with her immediately and then be like, forget everything I've criticised her for. Yeah. This is amazing. Yeah. Again,
I don't know if they still do, but they had two singers. They had
okay.
a male and a female singer. I remember they had a single that was relatively popular in 2002 or 2003. They were never, they weren't that good. They've never been, top tier, like festival headlining metal band.
No, which is why it's
mid-card metal band if ever there was one.
Mid-card metal band.
I'm sure it irked them to see bands like Evanescence come along and just Amy Lee rocketing to international superstardom while being a woman.
Amy Lee. Voice of an angel.
By all accounts, personality of a shithead.
Oh, really? Yeah. Is she a shithead? What did she do?
But she, by all accounts, you get that successful at that young an age, you get a bit of an ego on you.
But then, I'm not saying they should. I'm just like, did she actually have as bad an ego as everyone made out, or was she just?
Well, the guy that she formed the band with left the band because he couldn't deal with it. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Leaving your own band's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, leaving your own platinum-selling, incredibly popular band at their peak of their popularity so you can go and do fuck all is...
Evanescence, are they still well thought of?
I don't know that they're well thought of. I think...
Like, their music will always be part of it,
they'll always be popular because, as they always say, like...
me to life.
The most popular... the music that you loved when you were 13 or 14 will stay with you for the rest of your life. You will always think fondly of that music, and that's the thing that keeps Evanescence going. Do you have any other news for us?
I had one other thing, but I always over prepare so that I can veto one if I'm like, it's probably not that interesting. It is interesting to me. You might also find it interesting, but it is kind of stupid. Post Malone joins Nirvana at Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary.
There's so much wrong with this as a comment. So how can you join Nirvana when Nirvana don't exist anymore?
Well, it does go on to say that the remaining members, and I'm just make a new band. Stop fucking around.
Well, no. I assume Dave Grohl was one of the remaining members, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he joined the Foo Fighters. The significantly bigger, more successful band.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Also, the touring guitarist in Nirvana, I don't know if this was just me that found it funny.
Pat Smear.
Yeah.
Who also plays in the Foo Fighters.
Fuck's sake.
I think he's there was a touring guitarist in the Foo Fighters. He certainly played with them. I don't know if he's still playing with them. But
I just saw it and I was like, Post Malone is the most hilarious chameleon nerd ever. Like, he looks like the kind of person who only does like rap and talks about, having sex with women and cars and money and blah, blah, blah. but actually he's just a sweet little soul
Yes.
who called Dolly Parton ma'am about 60 times when he met her.
I saw a story about him this week. I don't know if it was a recent one or an old one. It was him getting a Domino's pizza at 9:30 in the morning when they were closed.
Because free will exists.
They were closed,
Aww.
and so he went over to Domino's on his own, and he was just at the door, like knocking at the door, and the manager was in there, and he was like, "It's Post Malone."
Post Malone.
So he went over to the door and was like, "Can we help you?" And Post was like, "I was really hoping I could get some pizzas. Are you open yet?" And they said, "Oh, we're not open for another half an hour, but you're Post Malone, of course we're open." So he came in, and I think he paid them like $800 for a few pizzas.
Post Malone could turn up at our door right now, and I'd give him like a place to sleep.
I'd make him a little
his
hot
dinner.
chocolate, tuck
Yeah.
him into bed at night.
Read him a little story.
Yeah.
Why?
Actually, we play some really good games of Magic because I've got some good decks.
I don't know. For some reason, he is full adult-sized Labrador, and I feel like
I've already forgotten what the story was, though. What was the story?
Oh yeah, he was performing with Nirvana.
Ah, okay.
They did "Smells Like Teen Spirit" on Saturday Night Live's 50th year anniversary, and I was just like, okay. I mean, he's playing in it. He's playing guitar in
He
it.
can play. Yeah, he can
Yeah.
play. He's not an exceptional guitar player, but there's a video of him on YouTube playing Eric Johnson's Cliffs of Dover.
Ah.
He's not playing it at tempo, and it's not as clean as it could be. He's definitely playing it a fair bit
No
slower,
one's as clean
but
as
he's
Eric Johnson.
taken the time to learn it. He can put his fingers in the right place, and you only do something like that if you care, if you're passionate.
Yeah, because it's not exactly like.
Yeah. Also, it's a sin that he didn't win I don't even know if he was nominated for it, but Country Album of the Year.
At Grammys.
Yeah.
Who won?
Beyonce.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she was getting a reward for something else.
Beyonce.
Like Best R&B Album of the Year.
Beyonce.
Oh, Beyonce.
Yeah.
I will defend you to the day I die, but you're an arsehole.
Posty's album was great. It was really good. I was really surprised how good Posty's album was. Did it help that, there's Brent Mason and Derek Rolls playing guitar on it? Absolutely. But like at the core, there's some good songs on there. And yeah.
Post Malone meeting Dolly Parton is just the colliding of so much wholesomeness.
We're currently sat here talking about hip hop and country music. I don't know if this has anything to do with metal or soul. So
Listen, they know what they're here for.
I don't think they do. I don't think we know what they're here for.
Never mind what I said.
We'll work it out. Okay, so should we continue forward?
Yes.
By looking at some more metal history. So I put a lot of thought into this, into where we were going to go from where we were. And we're not going to move on chronologically just yet. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other bands that were around at the time and in those early years, and trying to define a little bit more what it meant to be heavy metal back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, initially when we started this, or talked about starting the podcast, the idea was we'd do 1970 and then we'd look at bands from 1971 and then we'd look at bands from 1972. And a couple of things happened there. Sometimes nothing comes out in a year.
Sure.
But also it puts a very definite, so there's an end for this. Once we've done 50 episodes, we have to wait a year for the next one,
Yeah.
It's tricky. Yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of dig into some of those earlier bands. I've done a bunch of listening, reminding myself of a lot of this music as well. But we are actually primarily, fuck it, I don't care. We're not in school anymore. We're not in university. We're going to be looking at some Wikipedia stuff. And then,
Boo.
and then using that as a reference to look at and talk about, listen to some bands. Thoughts?
Okay. Listen, we could Google Scholar everything that we do, but we'd probably find the same information as on Wiki.
Yes, because good information on Wikipedia will be cited, and you can go and read the sources.
Yeah.
So that's the valuable stuff. So yeah, I'm on the Wikipedia page for heavy metal music. I am under the origins, late 60s, early 70s, and I thought it would be worth talking about some of the bands that they mentioned that we haven't talked about yet,
Okay.
and then go on and talk about some of the bands that I actually want to talk about who I feel are a little bit more metal. Critics disagree over who can be thought of as the first heavy metal band. Most credit the British bands Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, with American commentators tending to favour Led Zeppelin and British commentators tending to favour Black Sabbath, though many give equal credit to both. Deep Purple, the third band in what is sometimes considered the unholy trinity of heavy metal, along with Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, fluctuated between many rock styles until late 1969, where they took a heavy metal direction. A few commentators, mainly American, argue for other groups, including Iron Butterfly, Steppenwolf, Blue Cheer, or Vanilla Fudge as the first to play heavy metal.
Vanilla Fudge.
Yeah, so primarily I want to focus on some Deep Purple this episode,
Okay.
but not entirely.
Okay.
I do want to talk about the other bands. I just think it's a nice opportunity to give some props to Deep Purple because they are, a great band. And I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but Deep Purple's longest serving guitarist, thinks Melissa Kelly is an awesome vocalist.
I forget all the time, and then you remind me, and I go, "That's not true." And I'm like, "Oh no, it is."
Yeah,
that's right. Oh yeah, take that. People who tell me to shut up. I've forgotten your name. I'm sorry.
The interesting thing about all of this stuff is it allows us, I guess, to talk about vocals as well.
Yes.
Because we're really trying to work out, well, what's the difference between hard rock and heavy metal? And nowadays, people expect there to be a lot of shouting in metal.
Yes.
But of course, there wasn't back then.
No, there was not. I have my own thoughts and feelings on this situation.
So what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at Iron Butterfly, and actually I want to listen to Born to be Wild, but I'm just going to read this next paragraph for you. So in 1969, the sound that would become known as heavy metal began to coalesce. That January, San Francisco band Blue Cheer released a cover of Eddie Cochran's classic Summertime Blues as part of their debut album, Vinspus Eruptum, and many consider it to be the first true heavy metal recording. And then we talk about Born to be Wild, which uses the lyric heavy metal thunder in describing a motorcycle. And then it goes on to talk about the Jeff Beck group and then some Led Zeppelin stuff. They talk about the Beatles, and then we come to Inagada Davida.
Inagada, is that the right one?
Iron Butterfly, yes.
I only know about all
From
these
the
things
Simpsons.
from The Simpsons.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, Summertime Blues, their recording of Summertime Blues, absolutely not metal, but we are about to listen to it. We will, of course, listen to Born to be Wild, and we will check out Inagada Davida, and we will be back. So let's do it.
Yeah. Fuzzy and muddy and...
Yeah, fuzzy and muddy, and to me, like, it's psychedelic rock is the best description for that. But if some people think of that as being the first heavy metal, then fair play to you. Like, I can't argue. In the same way that when I think of the Kinks, You Really Got Me.
Yeah.
And they've got that,
really
broken speaker because they saw and it's got that fuzzy guitar tone in it. Like, just because something's fuzzy, you don't go, oh, it's heavy metal now.
No, of course not.
Yeah, that just feels like very loud, almost inexperienced rock. It's like we don't know how to get that tight sound, so we're just going to make everything as loud and fucking aggressive as possible. Let's turn our fuzz pedal up. And
here's the thing though, and I think that's something that modern metal could do with having a look at some of their roots, because whilst I really enjoy things like Sleep Token and Christ, what was that other band called? Doesn't matter. I enjoy all that stuff with all of its electronic influences, and I think the combination of electronic and metal music is just such a great combo. However, I fucking love the whole feral vibe of early metal music. Really feral, like nothing, nobody's trained, there is no maths. It's just, we want to play this sound and we want to be really loud and raucous about it. And I think I miss that.
Hard rock. That's hard rock to me. Anyway, so Born to be Wild. I don't even know why I'm playing this. We both know this song.
Born to be wild.
So heavy metal thunder. I was listening really closely to the distorted Leslie sound, and I was trying to make out for sure, because you said organ, and I'm like, yeah, organ. But then there was one bit, and I was like, is that a guitar playing through a Leslie? Because that is another thing that happens. But no, it was an organ. Yeah, super, super cool. But when I hear that, I like the sort of bar that you see in Terminator 2, where Arnie goes and...
Yeah, can I also interject?
Go for it.
Right underneath it, and this leads me into a rant that I'm not going to have right this second. It's not a rant, it's a theory. Can you quickly click on Born to be Wild by Wilson Pickett?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Wilson Pickett is undeniably going to have been an influence on a lot of metal singers.
Not even just...
in the early years.
Yeah, not even just Wilson Pickett.
Terrible name, though.
Wilson did pick it. It was his nose. I do think that...
You think of the white picket fence, but he was a black guy.
Is that racism?
I don't think so.
Okay. I just panic anytime anyone says race. I'm like, oh! But why? I genuinely believe that most of early metal, and it's so interesting to me because there's a lot of people who come in my comment section to talk to me about how they think that soul music's garbage and a lot of R&B is garbage and stuff like that, because of course they think about R&B as being, fucking Usher from the noughties. That's what they hear when they hear R&B, or they hear ballads by Dionne Warwick. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of that early soul music especially Wilson Pickett and especially Otis Redding, all this, so much natural distortion on their voice.
Yeah.
The music was being performed. I mean, Sam Cooke even, when you think about Sam Cooke, you'll probably think about someone being like, you know, what a wonderful world is good, with big strings and really clean cut because it was made for white America. But Sam Cooke's live performances, he sounds like Wilson Pickett. I think a lot of early metal performers got a lot of their inspiration for the distorted vocals from early soul singers who were essentially doing at live performances gospel vocals. They were preaching.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing, Wilson Pickett particularly was doing all of like wow, all that crazy like fry stuff. I'm just saying. So you want to talk shit about soul music? You wouldn't have your metal music if it wasn't for soul music. Sorry.
So to answer the question, does metal have soul? Metal needed soul is what
metal
you're going for.
needed soul.
Yeah, okay.
There would be no metal as we know it. There'd be no Dio. There'd be no Dio.
Yeah. Okay, so now I Am Butterfly, of course, 1968 for In Agada Davida, which, again, for people who may not be aware, is not In a Garden of Eden.
I did think it was In a Garden of Eden. Yeah. Question. What does In a Garden of Eden mean?
I'm going to hit play now.
You're not going to tell me?
When listening to that is, has anybody ever actually listened to all of In a Garden of Eden? Because it is 17 minutes long.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
That's pretty heavy metal.
Metal people need to have a deep discussion about their abusive relationship with song length. Leprous being the ultimate.
I promise you they're not the ultimate example.
Oh.
Yeah, so again, I listened to that and I'm like, you can see how this would influence the things that came after, but it's just not metal-y for me yet. What's interesting about that is you can very clearly hear the classical influence in there, in a lot of the note choices. Using harmonic minor sounds, exploiting that leading tone thing. So we've had a couple of instances there where we've listened to bands that have an organ. Like organ might have maybe been a part of early heavy metal.
Makes sense.
And one of my big regrets in life is not realising that.
Oh.
Because if I'd realised that when I was younger, I might have started playing the organ at a much younger age.
You never would have got laid.
That is true. That is true. I did know some organ players when I was younger, and I think they're probably still virgins to this day.
They've been re-virginized. They're so virgin that they've got two virgins.
Yeah,
virginies.
But yeah, we hear organ in A Garden of Eden. We hear organ on Born to Be Wild, and now we talk Deep Purple.
Okay.
So, Deep Purple, such an unbelievably good band. Such an unbelievably important, influential band. I think of the Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Unholy Trinity thing. I would have to place Deep Purple in that second place thing for the start of heavy metal. Actually, they probably stay there. For me, Led Zeppelin never became a metal band, but Deep Purple became a metal band, but a very different metal band from what Black Sabbath would become.
For sure. I also think that it is fascinating to me that in a band where they have such exceptional lead singers, the best singer in the band is still the bassist. That's wild.
That only applied for that one concert that you
did it?
seen. Yeah.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah. Because Glenn wasn't always their bass player. Roger Glover is their bass player most of the time, and he cannot sing. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Roger Glover, you suck. What's his name, Glenn?
Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, great vocalist. Yeah, so Deep Purple, the only thing they have going against them, unfortunately for this discussion around metal, is, like I say, they became a metal band for sure, but their early records, they're just not really a metal band at all. Like, they're psychedelic rock. And yeah, I wanted to really kind of make this episode about Deep Purple. I've actually posted a Deep Purple video on my YouTube channel yesterday, and I'm dealing with idiots in the comments on it, mainly because I posted an Andre Nieri video of him playing reimagining, literally reimagining, of the solo on the Deep Purple song Burn. So he just did like an Andre Nieri take on it, and it's fucking outrageous. Like, it's so good. It's so super shred. Like, it's like ridiculous levels of shred. And the amount of people in the comments that are like, you know, this is just about speed and nothing else. Who played the original solo? Richie Blackmore, right? For so much of the time, Richie was like one of the first shredders on the guitar. Richie absolutely approached his solos with the exact same mentality that Andre Nieri did in this take, where it's like, oh, I wonder how fast I can play on this thing. Like, at the expense of playing slow and with feel. So it's like, hang on a minute. So Ritchie Blackmore, when he soloed like this in the 70s, where his idea was, oh, let me see how fast and exciting I can make this. That was okay. But then when somebody else goes, oh, let me see how fast and exciting I can play this.
Because people are a bunch of hypocritical
morons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Deep Purple, of course, is an interesting band because you can't get away from how important the organ is in Deep Purple.
Sorry, the picture of the Deep Purple, I was like, oh!
Yeah. So we are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into Deep Purple, listening to some Deep Purple stuff.
Yep.
And the idea here, the way we're going to listen to this, is we're just going to listen, and then when you feel like it, you're then going to say, okay, I get the idea, and then we'll skip on to the next track. That makes sense?
Yep.
But I can't. So we'll start out with Shades of Deep Purple from 1968 and listen to a little bit of this. And yeah, you know, Ritchie Blackmore, important part of the band. They don't have Ian Gillan on vocals on this.
Okay, so who's on vocals now?
So it's Rod Evans on vocals. I cannot tell you anything about Rod Evans. He did 2 albums. I cannot tell you anything about him, and then I sit and read the timeline and tell you things about him. He just did 2 albums with them. Then it was Ian Gillan for 4 studio albums, David Coverdale for a bit, then back to Ian Gillan, Joe Lynn Turner for a record, and then again back to Ian Gillan. You think of Ian Gillan as the vocalist for Deep Purple. So
just so we're clear,
yes.
The people giving me so much shit about the early Deep Purple I watched and made a mistake about the singer, there was like 3 different singers.
Yes.
Just double checking the arseholian behaviour.
Okay, so here we go. Yeah, I'm not wild on that.
Yeah, I do like it because I like the Cooler Shaker version, which would make me burnt at the stake.
For me, like, Deep Purple obviously comes in 1970. Okay. So Deep Purple in rock. Now, the interesting thing, I guess, for Deep Purple is, and there's the organ thing probably plays into this as well, but the interesting thing with Deep Purple versus Black Sabbath is I think that Black Sabbath were absolutely first metal band, and their descendants are doom metal, sludge metal, like all these slow, grinding forms of metal. Deep Purple took a completely different thing. Mm-hmm. They're metal. They're also the fathers of metal. But Black Sabbath have nothing to do with like thrash metal, speed metal, power metal, like all these things where it's about playing fast and being all energetic. That was never Sabbath's thing. That was absolutely Deep Purple's thing. So they're fast and energetic, and we're about to listen to the song Speed King. We're going to check out a couple of tracks from this record. Speed King, Bloodsucker, I want you to hear. There's a great vocal in Bloodsucker, and Child in Time, and then, of course, Black Knight. So here we go. Let's just blast through those. Go on. You want to say something?
I have heard Child in Time.
Yeah. I would imagine so. It's had 97 million views on...
Oh, no, but I did it on the channel.
Oh, okay. Right, so Speed King. Black Knight.
Yeah.
So it turns out you already know Black Knight quite well without realising it.
Listen, I know you give me shit for my memory sometimes, but unfortunately my memory has a tendency to remember things that it does not need. So you'll put on a movie and I'll know the entire script for no fucking reason.
Yeah, so when you go beyond here, you have the Fireball album, which has tracks like Demon's Eye on it, which is pretty cool. But as you keep going on, in 1972, there we go. In 1972, here's where things change. So
1972.
1972 is when the album Machine Head comes out.
Okay.
Now Machine Head is like, it's the one that has Smoke on the Water on it,
Smoke on the water.
Which is like a heavy ass riff.
Do.
But it opens with Highway Star. And we'll just do Highway Star. I won't go any further with Deep Purple. Because I want to listen to a bunch of Deep Purple during the week and add a bunch of tunes to the playlist. And we'll cut it after that because while I was planning on, we'll do them next week, talking about bands like UFO and the Scorpions and other like very early 70s metal bands who aren't often credited in that trio. We'll mention them by looking at the Wikipedia article, but yeah, we'll devote a little bit more time to the next week.
Yeah, I think we don't need to rush.
More fun to spend some time consuming some Deep Purple, adding some tracks that you enjoy to the playlist for people to listen to.
Absolutely.
So Highway Star, 1972. It's like a big, like, composed, long, drawn out solo thing, and it's to me that's a big part of what makes metal different than a lot of hard rock stuff, because in a lot of hard rock stuff you have the blues is a big influence in the hard rock thing, and a huge part of that is improvising.
Yeah.
But this is removing a lot of the blues. There's still, guitar players can never really get rid of playing blues licks.
No.
But it's trying to take as much of that out and bring as much classical in as possible.
Sure.
Which is more about let's compose a thing. And like, to me, that's really cool. But as jarring as the harmony is when it comes in, it's like, it's really cool.
Super weird. So really, Deep Purple brought the speed and the classical to metal, and Black Sabbath brought the blues and the grunge to metal.
Yeah, I think that would be fair to say.
Okay.
And I think it's probably fair to say, I've said many times that I'm not actually a big Black Sabbath fan. I'm a big Zakk Wylde fan because of listening to Zakk in Ozzy. I'm a big Ozzy Osbourne fan because I like it when Ozzy's doing his, big banger metal tunes. But the slower, more blues-rooted, what would become doom metal sound of Black Sabbath has never really been my jam. But then I listen to Deep Purple and I'm like, oh yeah, this makes me want to, bounce around in my chair and have
nobody gonna take my part. What's that note at the start?
On Highway Star.
Yeah.
And of course, this is all before Judas Priest.
Yeah, that's a point. We haven't even talked about Judas Priest yet.
There'll be like 2 episodes from
Unacceptable.
And so what we did there was we did a long guitar solo, but you're going to get long organ solos in Deep Purple tunes as well, which is cool. It's cool to me now. When I was younger, it was like, what is this shit? I don't want to hear this shit.
What is this dinosaur band?
Yeah. Now I will just do one more actually. So I believe it's Burn. The album Burn is Coverdale's first album.
Okay.
I'll double check it's his first album. Burn was Coverdale's first album, and Glenn Hughes does bass and backing vocals.
Oh, Glenn Hughes, you beautiful bastard.
So they take a little bit of a different direction in from this album, and they're just refining that heavy metal sound and the speed and the power thing happening. It was Burn that I did a transcription of on YouTube. Great tune. So what do we take from that?
I think a lot of early metal
Yes.
and Deep Purple is stuff that I could easily listen to very regularly. And I think it's because it still has the remnants of what came before it.
Yes.
And I think as we go along, there's going to be a shift. Like, I feel like when we get into the 80s side of metal, I'm going to start dropping out.
Well, it's going to split quite a lot.
Yeah.
It evolves quite a lot because what hair metal in the 80s versus what Metallica were doing in the 80s are very different things.
Yeah. And I think I'm not saying metal lost its way in the 80s or anything quite as dramatic as that, but I do think that there was this moment in the 80s where metal was doing all that splitting off and splintering and things were being created, but then it all sort of started to come back in for the 90s into the 90s and new metal. And I don't know, I really enjoy this stuff, and I think that the singers they have is amazing because they're all just soul singers. I think a lot of the influences or the ways that they're performing are really interesting. I really like the harmonised solos, and I think what Ritchie Blackmore was doing was cool,
Very cool.
especially because one of those harmonies was so bizarre to me and
Yeah.
like really,
Yeah.
really jolting.
So we'll finish up by reading a little bit more of the Wikipedia page, just to mention some other bands. On the other side of the Atlantic, the trendsetter group was Grand Funk Railroad, who have the word funk in their name, so how heavy metal can they be? But anyway, they were described as the most commercially successful American heavy metal band from 1970 until they disbanded in 1976. They established the 70s success formula. Continuous touring. Other influential bands identified with metal emerged from the US, such as Sir Lord Baltimore, who of course we talked about last week, Blue Oyster Cult, 1972, Aerosmith in 1973. I don't think we ever really think of Aerosmith as being metal.
I was about to say that. I wouldn't. I mean, do you know why? Do you know the benchmark is? Do I know who they are? And have I listened to them before? Yeah.
And then Kiss in 1974. Now, you haven't done Kiss on the channel, but I know we've listened to a lot of Kiss. And Kiss are fascinating in that they are a hard rock band dressed up as a metal band.
Queen. They're doing drag.
Yeah, but I love them.
Drag.
Sir Lord Baltimore's 1970 album and both Humble Pie's debut and self-titled third album were among the first albums to be described in print as heavy metal. As Safe as Yesterday is referred to by the term heavy metal in a 1970 review in Rolling Stone magazine. Various smaller bands from the US, UK and continental Europe, including Bang, Josephus, Leafhound, Primeval, Hard Stuff, Truth and Janie, Dust, JPT Scare Band, Frigid Pink, Cactus, Irish Coffee, Mayblitz, Captain Beyond, Toad, Grantius, Ironclaw and Yesterday's Children. Literally can't tell you about any of those bands.
Some of those names are outstanding.
Yeah.
Captain Beyond, Frigid Pink.
Though lesser known outside of their respective scenes, proved to be greatly influential on the emerging metal movement. In Germany, the Scorpions debuted with Lonesome Crow in 1972. And then Blackmore, who had emerged as a virtuoso soloist with Deep Purple's highly influential album Machine Head, which we've listened to some of, left the band in 1975 to form Rainbow with Ronnie James Dio, which of course you are really looking forward to listening to.
So looking forward to it.
Yeah, singer and bassist for the blues rock band Elf and future vocalist for Black Sabbath and heavy metal band Dio. So there you go. You've also learned that Ronnie James Dio was a bass player in the band Elf.
There's nothing you can add to...
Short King.
He is a short king. There's nothing you can tell me about Dio that will tarnish his memory. I think he is glorious. Him and his weave.
Yeah. Dio would expand on the mystical and fantasy-based lyrics and themes found in heavy metal, pioneering both power metal and neoclassical metal. These bands also built audiences via constant touring and increasingly elaborate stage shows. So, I mean, when you look at Malmsteen, who we will obviously get to, like, he is just Richie Blackmore, but bigger. That's mainly because he ate a lot of donuts.
I love that we both went there.
Yeah, I had a bit of viral success on YouTube over the last week or so because of that clown video where I'm just clowning on Malmsteen, and the amount of people that are like, "How dare you? How dare you insult Malmsteen? He's a god." And I'll go back to every single one of them and be like, guys, I promise you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say, right? None of this is going to change the fact that Malmsteen is an incredibly important and influential and successful multi-million-dollar guitar player, a legend of music. Uh-huh. He doesn't care what I have to say. So no matter what I say, he's still going to be fat. Which is ironic coming from me, but I don't go around doing karate kicks on stage. So.
He doesn't, does he?
Oh, yeah. He throws his picks in the air and then kicks them out into the audience. And it was cool, when he was young and slim, but now you're like, yeah, exactly. Now it's like watching the great Khali wrestle. You're like, oh God, he's about to die. His legs are going to snap under him.
His legs are so fragile.
Yeah.
I mean, again, people in fat glass houses shouldn't throw donuts, but...
Okay, there's a short in that. Okay, so let's read this last little bit. There are arguments about whether these and other early bands truly qualify as heavy metal or simply as hard rock. And I think there's a lot of truth to this.
Okay, that was literally because I saw the name of the band and I was like, this has always confused me.
AC/DC.
Yeah. AC/DC are not considered heavy metal.
No.
Which, I don't know, I'm not saying they're the heaviest thing I've ever heard. I feel like with the vibe and some of the fuzziness and some of the riffs, I'm like,
yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
That's where people are going to have different ways of defining what heavy metal is or isn't. Like for me, if there's blues in there, it's probably more rock than metal. If we could talk music theory, if it's Dorian, it's rock. If it's Aeolian, it's probably metal. Like Aeolian, natural minor scale, very classical sounding.
And if it's aioli, it is a garlic dip.
Yes. Whereas Dorian is that blues rock sound. But what I was doing there was I was playing like an A minor to a D sound, and that's like 1 minor to the 4 major, which is a Dorian sound. If you do 1 minor to 4 minor, that's like an Aeolian sound. It's got a dark classical sound to it. To me, that's always a good way of separating the two. I also think power chords versus major and minor chords.
Oh, okay.
When you listen to AC/DC, for the most part, Angus Young is playing like power chord parts, but his brother Malcolm on rhythm guitar had less gain, and he would be strumming the big full major and minor chords to flesh out the sound, which again always sounds rock to me. So, but it is, you can make the argument, as metal becomes more extreme, it's easy to look back at the bands that came before and go, oh, they're not extreme enough to be considered metal.
Yeah, because here's the thing, right? There's plenty of people who I've had a discussion with in the comment section who have considered Thin Lizzy as part of metal's history. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Thin Lizzy is 100%. Phil Lynott was absolutely, or Lynott, I always pronounce his second name wrong, was absolutely doing like blues-based rock music. Yeah. What are you talking about?
But when you say blues-based rock music, we could then say, oh, so it's not really rock music, it's all just blues music. And that's the beautiful thing about evolution, isn't it? It's
I guess.
When does one thing become the next thing?
Sure.
People will argue about it for all time. So as I was saying, the people argue about heavy metal, simply hard rock. Those closer to the music's blues roots or placing greater emphasis on melody are now commonly ascribed the latter label. AC/DC, which debuted with High Voltage in 1975, is a prime example. In the 1983 Rolling Stone Encyclopedia entry begins, Australian heavy metal band AC/DC. Rock historian Clinton Walker wrote, calling AC/DC a heavy metal band in the 70s was as inaccurate as it is today. They were a rock and roll band that just happened to be heavy enough for metal. The issue is not only one of shifting definitions, but also a persistent distinction between musical style and audience identification. Ian Christie describes how the band became the stepping stone in that stepping band that led huge numbers of hard rock fans into heavy metal perdition.
Fair enough. It always confused me and always made me think that it was like, well, I just don't understand yous.
We could ask the question, like, why does any of this matter? Like, what does genres have to do with anything? And I would argue it does, but just for the convenience, it's really, really helpful for a listener if you can get an idea of what a band is going to sound like before you listen to them.
Sure.
If you just say that all bands that play with lots of distortion are metal bands, you could go, heaven forbid, your friend say, do you want to come see this metal festival or this metal concert tonight? The band start playing and out pops fucking Lacuna Coil on the stage. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, and do you know, that's funny you should say that. It's just pricked a memory. Levi and I did a gig a couple of weeks back, and we were outside on our break just getting some fresh air, and there were some girls who came out and they were having, a cigarette, and they were chatting to us, and they're like, where should we go? We want to go to a club or something, but we don't want to go to like a young person's club. We want somewhere where there's like music, but like good music. And Levi was like, well, what kind of genre are you looking for? And the girl was like, well, you know what, just anything. We love all music, anything apart from heavy metal. And I sat there and I didn't say anything, but I did sit there and go, I kind of get it now when some metal fans talk about the fact that some people speak of heavy metal in just this all-capsulating, it must just be noise and screaming. And it is so huge. You can't say no heavy metal. It's just like going, it would be the exact same as going, just no jazz, and including huge amounts of things in that.
Well, you open an interesting can of worms there, because they said we like all metal, and I just know, we like all music, but probably not heavy metal. It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to send you to a Western swing bar. No, I'm going to send you to a jazz bar. I'm going to send you to a country bar. And they're going to hate it. What they mean is, we listen to all of the music that's in the charts.
Oh.
So them's the rubs, though. So anything you want to add for people to go and check out your new single?
You can go and check out my new single if you want. Signal? Signal. I've been kidnapped. I'm winking to Signal for help in Morse code. Oh, for God's sake! They don't need to know about that.
Okay. It's all they're thinking about, so it's fine.
It is Valentine's Day after all.
Yeah, seems like a good way to end the episode. So thanks very much for tuning in, guys.
No.
Suck a bag of Richards.
You suck a bag of Richards. You can go and check out my new Signal if you would like. Thank you to those of you who have already and then messaged me or sent me comments just to tell me what you thought about it. I really appreciate it. I thought it was incredibly sweet. I will be putting the Spotify playlist in the description so you can go and have a look-see and see what you think and follow it. And, now you can go back to being disgusting. You know what? You're getting pegged. Let's see how you feel about that.
Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. Until next time, suck a bag of Richards.